Hi, my name is Kris, and I'm an art instructor. I have several classes where I teach adults and children, and today we're going to be working on these sunflowers, and so why don't we get started? We'll get out our paints and our brushes. Okay, so let's get started. These are the paints that I'm using. The brand is Craft Smart, but it doesn't really matter which brand you use. You could use any brand. These paints are a flat paint. They're not gloss or semi-gloss. If you have a gloss or semi-gloss, they will tend to have a shine to them when the light hits them, and sometimes that can be a bit distracting. The brushes I'm going to use one is a flat brush, and we use actually a couple different flat brushes, and I'm going to use something called a round brush. So the flat brushes, you can see, they can be rectangular or square, but they're flat and they have a straight edge. And you can turn them to the side, and that helps give you control in painting a straight line, or you could have them flat like this, and if you have especially, it gives you a nice straight edge, and it can also help you to fill in a background quickly. The other kind of brush that I may be using today is called a round brush. And the round brushes, you can see, they're not square. They don't have the straight flat tops like the other ones do. And those can help you to get all kinds of different strokes that you may be looking for. Like this painting right here. It's kind of in a Van Gogh type of style. And it just can give you some just different shaped brush strokes. And so it's just really what is most comfortable to you. If you haven't used a paintbrush before, you might want to try a couple different ones, and when you're practicing, you might want to get a scrap piece of paper, and you can just practice a few strokes on the paper to see how you like it and how you feel. So these are the paints that I use. Like I said, I'm going to take these off here to the side, so we get those out of the way. And so they're not in the way. So first, I'm actually going to be painting on a canvas board. I tend to like the boards because if you paint on a canvas that's stretched over a frame, the canvas can tend to sag a little bit over time, and I don't tend to like that. You can always paint on a canvas that's stretched over a frame. It's totally your preference. But to begin with, I'm going to go ahead and draw out some sunflowers in a vase to start with, and that's what we're actually going to be painting today. And I'm going to do it on paper right here so you can see it a little bit better. Normally, one of the mistakes that people make over and over again, because I always forget, so I tend to repeat this a lot, is that when you're sketching out the drawing of whatever it is that you're wanting to paint, people tend to press down really hard on the pencil. And it leaves a dark mark, and sometimes it actually presses down into the canvas and will leave a mark that way, and it can be hard to cover up. So when you sketch out your drawing, you want to sketch it out dark enough so that you can see it, but you don't want to do it so dark that it's hard to cover up with the paint when you're actually painting. But just so that you guys can see it a little bit better, I will be pressing down a little bit harder than I might normally so that you can see what I'm doing here. So the first thing I'm going to start to do is we are going to be doing a vase with sunflowers in it. You do not have to do sunflowers. You can pick whatever colors you would like. But I'm going to start down here with the tabletop. And some of my lines will be crossing over each other because this is just guidelines for myself, and they're going to eventually be painted over. To make my vase look more realistic and 3D, the bottom part of the vase, I'm just going to curve it just a little bit. And the top, you're probably not going to see a lot of this in the drawing, or in the painting. I'm going to curve that the same way. And the top of the vase is a little bit wider than the bottom, so we're going to go ahead and round that down. When we go down here. And I am actually drawing this at an angle, so I'm at a little bit of disadvantage. I am not getting the correct perspective that I would get if I was actually facing the drawing. So what I'm drawing here is probably not going to look quite as good as that yours may look at home because you're going to be actually facing it. The style of these sunflowers is going to be kind of along the style of Van Gogh. He was a famous artist. I tend to really love the Impressionists, and so I tend to really like their style. So we're going to put, you're not going to be seeing what's back here, so we're going to go ahead and put a flower right here, kind of leaning down. So it's a bit of an oval. And then over here, we're going to put the circle face of a flower. It does not need to be perfectly neat. If, while you're drawing your flower, if you feel more comfortable drawing petals like this, that is totally fine. This is your painting. You do however it is that is comfortable to you. Okay? I kind of like a little looser style. So when I do mine, I kind of make them more jagged and loose. And then when I go back over them and paint them, that's going to just look a little rougher. And that's just the style that I like to do. I'm going to make them a little shorter over here. Still kind of at a triangle shape. Trust me, this will look a little bit better as we go, as I go. I'm sure yours is going to look better than mine. And then up here, I'm just going to put a stem coming up here in the back. And then just a little sunflower up here in the corner. Okay, and then let's see. Okay, so what I'm going to do, let's see, we're going to draw a leaf right here, kind of an angular. You can do yours curvy. I kind of like mine a little more angular, and that's okay. And I'm running out of room. I'm going to put another leaf off here to the side. Maybe one up here. Okay, that looks a little bit messy, but that gives you an idea how to start with the drawing. So I went ahead and I actually have one that is already on a canvas right here. This canvas is 8 by 10. You can pick whatever size you want. It's just the size that I chose to pick. And I went ahead and I put on this one just a base coat of blue down here. We're going to go back over this with a couple other colors. That's going to give it a little bit more texture. But first what we're going to do is we're actually going to start with the background, because that's the best thing to always start with, because when you start with the background, then you can go back over with more detail and do the main object that you're painting. It is easier to paint the background and fix the main object afterwards. And paint is very forgiving. So if you make mistakes while you're painting, it's okay. We'll just let it dry. We can wipe off the wet paint if there's a lot of it. And we can always go back and fix it after. So this is aqua paint, sorry, that I'm using here. You can use whatever color you want. I tend to like the aqua paint and the yellow of the sunflowers together. I think it just kind of, they just make each other stand out really nicely. The aqua just makes the yellow kind of just pop off there. So we're just getting some of the aqua in the background. And then we're going to go back over it with a little bit of at least some white. And maybe another shade of blue just to give it some texture in the background. And then we'll go in for the details. If while I'm painting I'm going too fast for you, you can always stop the video. You can rewind. Or if you're a little bit ahead of me and you want to fast forward to the end to see how great it works out at the end of this, go right ahead. Trying to kind of go right around my flowers. I don't want to cover them up too much. But if I do, that's alright. Remember, we're going to go right back over it with the details here after we get the background on there. Now I just used my broader flat brush to do that in the background. I'm going to go back over with just, let's see, a little bit of white and maybe a little bit of this gray color here. Oop, I don't like that much. Let's wipe that off there. Doesn't look great. Okay. Rinse off my brush. Okay, I'm going to go back in here and we're going to, just with a tad bit of water on my brush, I'm going to grab some of that white and some of that aqua blue I was using before together on my brush, and just go ahead and mix those together as we go. That's just going to add a little bit of texture in there. Let's go over here. Blend that in just a little bit as we go. Don't be afraid to slap that paint right on there. I've had some classes where we just get to throw paint literally at the canvas. We go outside to do that so we don't mess up anybody's inside of their house or building. So do not go to your parents and say that I told you you could throw paint around in the house. I like friendly, nice calls from parents. Okay, we're almost done with this background. Getting that nice texture in there. Okay, and then we're going to go in and we're going to, next thing we're going to move to is we're going to do the vase of this. I'm going to get myself a little bit more white. Now the top part of our vase is going to be like a lime green, and the bottom part of the vase is going to be white. And my canvas is already white, but it is very noticeable if you decide that part of the painting is white, so you just decide that you don't want to paint that canvas part there at all. And that's a bad idea, because what ends up happening is you can tell that there's no paint on there, and it just ends up looking like it's unfinished. So you don't want to do that. So if there's part of your painting that you want it to be white, you're going to want to actually put some white there. You can also end up mixing some other colors in with that white just to give it a little bit of a texture to it, just to give it a little bit of body. So I can add just a tiny bit of this gray in there. You can see on my brush there is actually the white and the gray on there. And we're just going to kind of add a little bit to that side here. It gives it a little bit of a shadow effect on there, makes it look a little bit real. And let's see. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and put some of this lime green up here. And this is what we're going to do the vase in this color. And we'll go back and we'll add a little bit of white in there too again, with just to give that a little bit of texture, make that pop out a little bit more too. If you like these colors, great. Then you don't have to think too much about what colors to pick out for your flower pot or your flowers. But if you don't like them, that's totally fine. You can add in there whatever color you like. And you can brush the brush in different directions because it actually kind of adds a nice effect with the texture. See, I just went in here with some white. And we're going to take a couple brush strokes right down this way to make it look like it's got a little reflection going on. There we go. And under here, while all this paint is still wet, we're just going to take a darker green and just go under here just a little bit to make it look like there's a shadow of the flowers and the leaves there. And I hope none of you are looking at this going, oh my gosh, that looks too hard. It's okay. Just take out that brush and take out that canvas and go ahead and try it. If you're staying home in quarantine, nobody's going to know that you messed it up anyways, and like I said, you can just go back and fix it. Just try something crazy that you've never done before. Okay, so there's our shading for that. Let's see, we're going to go and we'll go ahead and do the middle part of our flowers now. Let's start. We're going to start with this brown and some of this gray right here. This brown, this gray, I mixed it just a little bit on the brush together. And we're just going to dab it all around in different directions, put some of this in the middle here. And this is just going to be our base color underneath everything, because we're going to go back over it once it dries and add some more color and texture on top of that. You can go ahead and mix those colors together. If you want to throw in there a little bit of that orange, you just don't want to mix them too much because you don't want to end up with a kind of a muddy mess. I'm just dabbing my brush a little bit as I go. It kind of gives that nice texture. We're going to let that middle there dry a little bit, and we're going to go back to that in just a second. So I'm just rinsing off my brush and wiping it on my handy dandy paper towel, and make sure you have that. And we're going to go over to this next flower, because there's all kinds of different kinds of sunflowers. We're going to do this one with a base of that orange and a little bit of yellow. And you can see I'm dabbing again as we go around the edges. This one is also going to be drying, and then we'll go back over this base color. And we're just going to hop to different parts of this painting as we go to let parts of it dry. And if you get to a point where everything is still really wet, you might want to pull out, either give it a few minutes to dry. Acrylic dries pretty fast. Or you can take out a hairdryer and you can go ahead and turn that on your painting, and that'll help dry it a little quicker. This is something that you could do with your friends. You can do by yourself at home. You guys could do like a Zoom call or a FaceTime each other, and you guys can watch the video together and just enjoy hanging out. Get yourself some snacks and something to drink and just hang out and have fun with this. Okay, we're going to go to this top color up here for a minute. And let's see. We're going to do a little bit of this red. And the circle around here. I know you're thinking these colors look really dark. They do a little bit, but again, these are going to be underneath everything. And we're just going to build up some paint on top of that. Get our orange out here. I'm dabbing right around there. Okay, let's let that dry. And while that's drying, let's go work on the table that vase is sitting on. So we're going to take our browns. And you notice I got my blue under here. This is just a blue base. It will affect the paint color on top of it a little bit. So some people like to start with a base color like that, and some people don't. It's just whatever you prefer. I'm going to put this brown down first over top of the blue. And then I'm going to go ahead and add some other colors to add texture. If while you're painting you feel like you are getting stuck, you feel like something on it doesn't look right, but you don't know what that is, it is always totally okay to go ahead and message me and send me a picture of what you're doing and let me see if I can help you come out, because I want you to leave my class always feeling like you did the best painting you ever did. I want you to feel like you've succeeded. I don't want anybody to ever leave and feel like they just totally messed that up, and and they can never paint again. I've seen some people feel like that. I've heard of people, kids leaving different classes, and feeling like they can never paint or do anything ever again. You don't have to be a famous artist to just relax and just have fun painting. It's very therapeutic, and during all this time, I'm sure a lot of us could use some of this kind of thing to get rid of some of that anxiety everybody's feeling. So let me get just a little bit more brown. When I put my paint out on my plate, I should have said this at the beginning, your paint is going to go a lot farther than you think. So when you're painting, I don't want you to just put in on enough to be about the size of a dime or a nickel or penny. It's going to go a lot farther than you think, and that way you don't end up squeezing out a ton of paint out onto your plate or your palette and then wasting all that paint. Okay, so my paint, this is acrylic paint, so my paint's tending to dry kind of fast, but it's still wet. And that's kind of the way I want it. When I'm going to go back in here with some other colors, I just put a base coat of this brown, and now I'm going to go in with some of this burgundy. And I'm just going to put these quick strokes in different places. And because we look at things, and sometimes if we think about going to paint it, we think of a sunflower as only being yellow. But really, there's a whole lot of other colors in there. And it starts to look a whole lot more interesting when you add in the other colors in there like this. On our base a little bit, we can just wipe that off a little bit. I'm going to just do a dab of a little bit of yellow up here. This looks kind of weird like this right now. I'm going to add some white into that, so it's not so bright. And I'm probably going to let that dry just a little bit, and then, let's see, there we go. We want it to make this side over here look as if we got some sun coming in. And then this side over here is going to be a little darker because of the shadow. And you can blend this in as much as you want. Sometimes it helps to stand back a little bit. You want the texture of however you're painting things to be consistent. So step back a little bit, look at your painting. It's harder for me to do that from here. But stand back, look at your painting, see how it's balancing itself, see how the colors, see if the textures are coming out to be similar, because that's what you want. So you want all of it to look as if it fits together. And I'm just going to add a tiny bit of blue just in here, just to add a little bit of interest. Color. And I'm just making these short little streak marks, just these short little strokes like this. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate. Okay. So on our sunflowers, parts of them are already drying. We're going to hop up back up here, and we're going to add some of a mix of this orange and yellow. Let's see. And we're going to dab over that. The brown is there. It's going to help that yellow to be a little darker, so that when we do our yellow petals, those are going to pop more. And I am mixing a little bit of this orange and a little bit of this yellow together, both on the same brush together, not completely mixed, and I'm dabbing it. Okay. So we're going to let that dry for a second. Let's hop back over to this flower right here. We can get some yellow on that and a little bit of maybe white. Here we go. If you are of a family of a few different, maybe like 2 or 3 of you, or you maybe want to do several of these, and you can put them all together on the wall and make a nice collage of them all together. That always is fun to do as a family. Let's see. Got a nice sunflower right there. We're going to go back to our first sunflower. We're going to go ahead and do the petals with some orange and yellow. So, and I put the petals on this side of my flower to be shorter than this side. And I think I probably wanted a petal right here. And I did that just to give a perspective that the flower was turned a little bit one way. And the parts of an object that are facing away from you are going to be shorter and smaller. So that's why this side is shorter and this side is longer, because it's turning away from you. Let's see. And my yellow is going over that aqua blue a little bit in the background. That's okay. We can always go back over that a little bit. We're going to be adding some more color to that. So that's not going to be noticeable. I think it's turning out very nice. If you decide that you would like an art kit from me and you want me to draw this onto your canvas, please just go right ahead and ask me any questions you have about that. We're going to add a little bit of orange to that. Just a second. Let's go ahead and put the petals on this thing up here. And we're going to add some yellow around the center of that too. And just go right into that red just a little bit. Rinse off your brush so you don't mix too many of the colors that you don't want together in there. Okay. All of this I've been doing with this small flat brush. To me it's just more comfortable. Just kind of works better for me. And I'm not actually defining a whole lot of the petals on this. They're just dabbing that paint in the direction I want to go. There we go. Just going to take a touch of that brown and just put it right in the middle there. Okay. I am going to switch over just for a moment to one of my smaller I'm not sure which one. Maybe that one. One of my smaller round brushes. And I'm going to take my brush. Let's see if this works. Take my brush, get it wet, and I'm going to put it in that paint, and I'm going to kind of spin it a little bit so it gets a more defined point to it. And then I'm going to go ahead and add some of the orange in here. But I want it to mix a little bit with that yellow. Let's see, just a tad bit of it. I'm going to probably go back over this again with just some yellow to just some squiggly lines in here. And blend that orange in there. And as I'm doing that orange, I'm also going back in here just while it's still wet and just adding a little bit of this yellow paint in here. Just to soften the edges. You can see if these ones I just did right here, you can see that they're really harsh and sharp. And when I say I'm going back to soften that up, that's what I mean. So we're going to go back in here. Those are rough and sharp right there, just right now. And then we're going to go back and grab just a little bit more of that yellow. You can add white if it's starting to get too dark. And you just kind of spread it a little bit into that orange. You can see the color still there. But then you get those softer edges. I'm mixing a little bit of white with my yellow too to brighten that up just a little bit. Just parts of it. Okay, now we're going to go back and look at that this other one right, I might just add a tad of brown right here just to kind of sharpen up that edge. There we go. Alright, let's go to that top sunflower and kind of define those edges just a little bit too. Just lightly. And you can see some of the aqua blue is coming through this top one. We can get rid of that. Okay. Mix a little bit of that yellow with that white again. And soften this up here. And after we do this part, we're going to go ahead and add in those leaves. And then we should be about done. Just going to touch up the edges of this middle here. And then let's just add a little bit to the leaves. So I'm going to take a little bit, I want my leaf here and here to pop out from this green I have right here. So I'm going to take my green right here, and I'm going to just give it a touch of this yellow together. And I'm going to go ahead and paint that leaf right under this flower. And it already kind of pops out a little bit from that, the vase color. And my paint's getting a little bit dry, so I'm just going to add just a touch of water to that. That'll smooth it out a little bit, make it easier to work with. Okay, so I got most of my leaf painted in there, and then I'm going to go back with a little bit of a darker green just to highlight parts of it. So if this leaf was kind of folding in a little bit, we might have a little bit of shadow up here. Towards the middle, if the sides are curling up, we're going to have a little bit of shadow here under the petals. And you might show the edge of the leaf right there by putting the shadow here. And we'll just get the tip of that leaf right there. Okay, and then we have the other one up the top. We have this leaf right here, behind this flower. So we got that base green right there, and then we're going to add, let's see, we're going to add some darker green in there again. Just to give that some more depth up here. Okay. make sure we get this stem in here from this flower so it doesn't look like it's floating in the air. We don't want that. Just add a little bit more leaves up here, wherever it is you feel like you want to. And let's see. I'm just adding a little bit of green here at the bottom just to give it a little bit more shading and just some color to make sure it's not looking like it's floating up in the air anywhere, or that it's not finished. And there's your flowers in your vase. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed it. If there's any other kind of things that you would like to learn how to paint, I'm going to be doing more of these, and you're welcome to give me any suggestions in the comment area. There will also be some instructions in there if you are in need of any of the art kits to go along with these paintings.